Hello, my name is Jess and I am a mess. So today I'm going to talk about my second miscarriage, which happened in August of this year, 2025. So I'm currently like 2 months postpartum. I'm gonna go through all the ups and downs, and I hope that it brings awareness to what women might be going through when they have a miscarriage, if you know someone who has had one. And I also hope that this brings some just like validation and healing to the women who have gone through or are currently going through a miscarriage. So this story starts back in early June. One day I was in my quiet time talking with the Lord, and it was a really sweet time. I just felt like He was talking to me about just lingering in His presence and not rushing on to the next thing. And I was just like, wow, this is so good. And I wrote it all down. And then I felt like He was done talking. So I was like, okay, on to the next thing. And He's like, no, linger. I'm like, oh, right, that's what we are learning today. And then just hit me so hard with this word, like, you will wean Matthias with tears the same way that you weaned Eden. And I was like, what? And so when Eden was about Matthias's age, actually she was a little older, like just barely 2, I got pregnant with Matthias, and I was just planning on, nursing Eden for longer. And I started getting really tender in my breasts, and I tried to just push through it, but it just got to the point where I couldn't stand it anymore. So I was forced to just go cold turkey with her, and it was really hard for both of us emotionally. Neither of us was ready to stop nursing. And so to hear God say that, it didn't feel like I was doomed to, have the same fate with Matthias. It felt like a warning, like God was saying, you need to start weaning him right now, or else this will happen. That's what the impression that I got. And I was like not ready. Matthias was 15 months. I was like, I wanted to nurse him until he was at least 2. And I was also kind of confused because I was like, well, God, it's June and we talked about getting pregnant in October. And so you want me to like wean him early? I didn't get it. But I asked God if I could have a couple days to just kind of let it sink in before I started. And then a couple days later, I started, I just took away 1 feeding at a time. He was having 4 feedings in a 24-hour period at that point. So I started weaning him. And a few weeks later, I found out that I was pregnant, which was a total surprise because we weren't like trying really hard to avoid pregnancy, but we weren't trying to get pregnant. And I was like looking at the calendar because I tracked my cycles, and I was like, how did this happen? but something that I thought was really cool is I realized after the fact that the day that God told me to start weaning Matthias was the day that I ovulated. So God knew. And I didn't get tender right away, so I was able to, comfortably wean Matthias over like a 6-week period. And it was hard emotionally, but it was so much easier than it was with Eden on both of us. And so I was just so grateful to God for just having grace on me and showing me that, because like I said, I didn't think that I was gonna get pregnant. I wasn't planning on getting pregnant. It just, was a surprise. So looking back, I actually think that this was my hardest pregnancy. This is my 4th pregnancy. 2 of them were full term, 41 weeks. 1, I lost the baby at 7.5 weeks. And this one, I lost the baby at just shy of 13 weeks. So it definitely wasn't like a long pregnancy, but just going off like the first trimester for each pregnancy, I felt like this one was really tough. I mean, yeah, I had some fatigue, some nausea. I don't remember it being like super bad. I thought it was about average. But looking back, I was like, out of all my pregnancies, I was never this irritable and sensitive and anxious. Like, my emotions were just like, I was a mess. Just as a mess. Obviously. But it was really rough. I was, getting mad at the kids over like little things, and I was just having a hard time. Like, I felt like I couldn't function properly some of the time. I was even having blood sugar crashes where, like, for 2 weeks straight, every morning right after breakfast, I just would, feel like exhausted and like just lie on the couch for hours and felt like I couldn't do anything. I felt horrible. I've had blood sugar issues in all of my pregnancies, but it had never been that bad before. And so I was just having a really hard time. But about 12 weeks in, I started like regaining my strength and my energy. My mood started to like even out, and I was like, I'm, hitting my stride. Like, I always like just feel so much better in every way in the 2nd trimester. And it was like, I could see it on the horizon. I was like, it's coming. I was so excited. And then at the end of the week, I started bleeding, and I've bled in every single pregnancy. So at first, it wasn't a big deal to me. I thought, this is normal. It was Friday, I started bleeding, and then Friday night, I was having like really bad pain in my pelvis and my hips and my legs and my back. And I was like really uncomfortable. I didn't sleep well. And then Saturday morning I woke up and was like bleeding more. And I didn't know at the time that pelvic pain is a symptom of miscarriage. I don't remember having that in the first miscarriage. The first one was something like a really heavy period, but worse than any period I've ever had, with like really mild contractions. But it went where it was like a little bit of blood, and throughout the day it was getting heavier and heavier. But this time, like, it was just staying steady, and I felt a little bit tired, but not as tired as the first miscarriage. So I was kind of, on the fence about like, should I be concerned or not? But I got up Saturday morning and just talked to God and had some quiet time, and I just was getting like these prophetic words that led me to believe that my baby was going to live. And my husband and I both just kept being drawn to different instances of Jesus healing someone and saying like, your faith has healed you. And we were so encouraged, and we just felt so much peace. And it was our Sabbath, so we just were like lying on the couch, snuggling, and we were watching the Matthew videos, the Gospel according to Matthew that was made, I don't know when. I watched it when I was a kid, and it was just so encouraging, and we felt so good. And we told like some close family members what was going on. They were praying for us, and I just felt so much faith that like everything was gonna be okay. And then right before I went to bed that night, I had this vision that I like woke up in the middle of the night and was miscarrying, and I was like, okay, is that like, you know, an evil spirit trying to scare me, or is that God trying to prepare my heart? I didn't know. And I just, you know, took the thought captive, and I just didn't dwell on it, and we went to bed. And so I woke up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. Felt fine. I went to the bathroom, and then I came back, and I was like lying down trying to fall back asleep, and I just had this contraction, and it was like I just knew. Part of me wanted to, you know, say, I mean, it's possible to have contractions and it not lead to, you know, like labor and stuff. But I was like, I think that's what's happening, you know, especially since I had the vision. And after, I think, like the third contraction, it was so powerful, so hard. And they were coming like 2 minutes apart. And I was like, I can't do this alone. Like, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm gonna get to the point really fast where I can't like move or talk, and I won't be able to like ask my husband for help. So I turned over in bed, and I woke him up, and I don't remember what I said, like I'm having contractions or something, and I just asked him to help me. And so he just, I don't know, put his hands on me. It's hard to remember because, you know, when you're in labor, you're like in a different state of mind. I just remember him putting his hands on me, and just, it was just like this peaceful presence, like just knowing my husband's with me, and like it's gonna be okay, we're gonna get through this. And after a few more contractions, I felt like a gush, which I didn't realize until I talked with a nurse friend later, but I think that was like my water breaking. And I was like, I don't want to, you know, get the bed messy, and so I told my husband, like, there's a lot of blood coming out, we need to get to the bathroom. And so he helped me, and I sat on the toilet for like 2 hours straight, just having contractions 2 minutes apart, and leaning on my husband, and he was just like holding me and just praying and praising God, and just like all these encouraging scripture verses were coming out of his mouth. It was just like such a work of the Holy Spirit, just being with us in that moment and just comforting us. And I didn't really feel any negative feelings in the moment. I just felt like focused, and I just felt the supernatural peace. And I wasn't even thinking about it, you know, I was just kind of in the zone. And I remember my husband just looking into my eyes, and he was like, "This is the most peaceful I've seen you in a long time." And I was just like, that's God. Like, that's amazing. And after 2 hours, like, I couldn't sit up anymore. I was so exhausted. And the contractions started to, you know, get milder and farther apart. And so we decided to go back to bed. And so for about 2 more hours, I was just getting up periodically to go to the bathroom and just laboring, lying down. My husband had gone back to sleep. And then about 6 a.m., I was tired. I had been up for 4 hours, and the contractions slowed down enough that I was able to sleep a little bit. And then we got up at 8, and I was trying to like get breakfast made. I was still in labor, and the contractions started coming 2 minutes apart again. And you know, I was uncomfortable. I was like, I can't like sit and eat. Like, I had to get up and walk around, and I, you know, at that point I was kind of just ready for it to be over. I was tired, and it was rough. So, TMI warning, I went to the toilet and had this really big clot, like the size of a peach, I would say. And then right after that, I saw the placenta come out, and it looked like it was kind of torn. Like it wasn't in one piece, and it was, it didn't come out all the way. Like, it was kind of hanging, and I was like, I know you're not supposed to pull on it because that can, you know, hurt you. And I was sitting there for like a good 5 minutes. I'm like, you know, getting sore just sitting on the toilet and trying to figure out like, what do I do with this thing? Like, should I just pull my pants up? No, like I can't pull on it. Like, should I cut it off? It was frustrating. And finally I was like, God, will you help this just come out the rest of the way? And I mean, within 10 seconds, it just whoop, into the toilet. And then like the contractions stopped, and like no more heavy bleeding, because it was like a lot of blood every time I went to the toilet. And so I was in labor for 8 hours, and it was Sunday morning, and I was like, I don't really feel up to going to church. It was 10 o'clock and church started at 11. And I had already told my parents that we lost the baby. I called them like at 8 a.m. when we woke up. And so we talked to them and talked with each other, and finally decided, my husband went and dropped me off at my parents' house, and he took the kids to church. My parents went to their church, and my sister stayed home. And she just sat with me, and we hung out, and she made me breakfast and chocolate chip cookies, and she just kept bringing me all this food, which was great because I love food. And just getting to be with her was really special, because we haven't had a lot of time together since I've been married. and she's one of my best friends. So it was just really, really good for my heart, like just getting to be with her. And, I slowly told all the friends and family what had happened, and, people asked me, like, is there anything I can do? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I need something, but I don't know what I need. It was really hard because my emotions were all up and down and everywhere. I was confused. I was angry. I felt like God had tricked me because I had had prophetic words and visions when I first got pregnant, and then more prophetic words when I was miscarrying. And I was like, I know God can stop this baby from dying. I know he can raise it back to life. And I just didn't get why God led me to believe that I was going to have a healthy baby, and then I didn't. And I was a mess. And I felt like maybe the first 2 weeks after the miscarriage, I had an open heart, and I was just processing my feelings and talking about it. And then I feel like at some point I just got weary just from having a heavy heart. And I just remember realizing, like, I wasn't cooking dinner. I didn't feel like worshiping God. I didn't feel like feeling anything. I was depressed. I was lonely. I was apathetic and just numb. And I was just like, what happened? Because I felt like, obviously it's a really hard thing, but I felt like I was grieving in a healthy way. And then at some point I just got tired of it. I wanted to move on. I was like, I want the bleeding to stop so I can get pregnant again, and I want all the sadness to stop. I want to, I was trying to do homeschooling with Eden, but then it was like October, and I was like, we haven't started school. All the other moms that I know have already figured everything out, and I was stressed and discouraged, and at that point I realized, like, I should have asked for a meal train. I should have reached out more to friends and asked for help, but I felt like, a month later, it's kind of too late. Like, I felt like, it's old news. Like, nobody really cares about it anymore. They've all moved on, which I know are lies. But I thought about it when I first miscarried. I thought about doing a meal train, but I was like, nobody does meal trains for miscarriages. And I don't know if it was pride. Looking back, I wish that I had done that, because that's been the hardest thing for me, is just making dinner. And I really wish that I had, someone who would just come over and, like, play with the kids or talk with me or something. Like, I was trying to get out of the house as much as possible because I was like, I can't be alone. So just seeing everyone else around me look like they're doing fine made me feel like I should be doing fine. And, people weren't really checking on me. Like a month, 2 months after it happened, no one was like, how have you been doing? Are you okay? Like, people just seemed to expect me to just move on. And I felt like, I should get back to doing what I've always done. I need to do chores, I need to do meals, I need to do schoolwork, and just felt like I should look like everyone else, felt like I should function normally, because I was like just so frustrated that I couldn't function normally. And I was like asking myself, why am I not myself? And I mean, the answer is obvious, but I was like, why is it taking so long? I don't remember the first miscarriage being this hard or this long of a recovery process. I mean, even the bleeding, like, first miscarriage, it was like a week and a half. This one, it was like 6 solid weeks of bleeding. And I was just getting so frustrated, like, I just want to move on. I don't want to be depressed. I want to be happy, and I want to just go back to life the way it was before. And I realized, like, I don't even want to be pregnant again. Like, I don't want to go through that again. That was a really hard pregnancy. Like, I just want to skip straight to birth. Like, I just want to have the baby. And I just realized, like, that my heart was bitter. And I was bitter toward God. Just like, God, why'd you let me have her? Why'd you let me enjoy our time together? Like, you know, I feel like it would have been better if I hadn't gotten pregnant at all. Then I could still nurse Matthias, and then I could be, like, emotionally healthy. Like, I was, you know, felt like I was making progress in all these areas, and then I just had, like, this huge setback, and I'm like, I have to do all this work to get back to just where I was. And then, like, I felt like God had all these promises for me that he was, like, just holding them up, and then, like, oh, no, you can't get it. Like, just kidding. And so just realizing, like, that there was all that bitterness and stuff in my heart, I was like, I shouldn't get pregnant again. Like, I'm not emotionally healthy. I still need healing. And my husband and I were just talking about it, and we decided, like, we're not gonna try to get pregnant right away like we did after the first miscarriage, which I remember was really hard, being pregnant right after I'd lost a baby. But you know, the miscarriage just felt like a waste of time. But I know that that's a lie, because I'm like, I have another baby in heaven waiting for me, and even though it's so painful right now, I know I'll meet them again. And you know, this life is just like a shadow, but when we get to heaven, we're gonna get to live forever with Jesus and the babies that we lost, so many other people that we've lost, and that gives me hope. So just trying to, like, give myself space to grieve, but also fix my eyes on Jesus and on the hope that we have in him. When I was miscarrying, before I realized that I was miscarrying, when we were just getting all those verses about your faith has healed you and everything, I was like, Faith would be a good name, because we knew, like, from the moment that we found out that I was pregnant, we just knew that it was a girl. And when we lost her, I was like, I think Faith is still a good name, because faith is, like, what we're being challenged in, and it's exactly what Satan's attacking us with. And I know that God's good. I know that he's faithful. I know that he's with us. I don't have all the answers as to why it happened the way it did and why I, had those prophetic words. I mean, I talked to God about it and felt like He showed me how, even though I didn't see the fulfillment of them on earth, they're fulfilled in heaven. Our daughter is, joyful and peaceful, and she's healed. She doesn't have, any issues in heaven, and she's with God, and she's with Peniel, our son, and that helps. So looking back on the pregnancy and even the way labor went, even though it was a miscarriage, I just saw the goodness of God. There were some things that I talked with my husband about, and even some things that I hadn't told anyone about, that were like desires in my heart for the pregnancy and for the birth. And just seeing that those desires were fulfilled blesses me, even though it didn't end the way that I thought it would, the way that I hoped. So one just huge blessing that I didn't even realize until like weeks later is when I had the first miscarriage. I felt sad that, I hadn't gotten a picture of me holding my belly, even though I wasn't showing. I was like, that would have been nice. That would have, been a little memento. And so I didn't think I would have a miscarriage again, but I thought, if I ever did, like, I hope that I would get a picture of my belly. And I did. We were on vacation, visiting one of my husband's sisters, and she took some pictures of us. I had forgotten that she took those pictures because she hadn't sent them over right away. And then when I remembered and I saw them, it was like 2 or 3 weeks after I miscarried. It just brought tears to my eyes, and it's a blessing. And then one thing that I had told my husband that I wasn't really sure about is I told him I think I might want to not nurse the older kids after the baby comes, because after I had Matthias, I started nursing Eden again, and then I weaned both of them when I was pregnant with Faith. And I was thinking, like, I might not want to nurse 3 kids. I might just want to nurse the baby. I wasn't really sure about it, but now that, like, my milk is gone, it was, like, kind of sad, but also, like, seeing how that desire was fulfilled. And then I had some secret desires about the way that the way that labor would go. I don't think I even told anyone about these, but I was considering, like, maybe having a private birth, like just me and my husband. When I had my son Matthias, my parents and sister were there, which I really enjoyed, but I was like, I don't know, I might just want to have me and my husband there. And so just looking back on, like, the time that my husband and I had together alone in the middle of the night with God was just really special to me. And with my son's birth, it was very, very long, and I was like, I don't want, like, a super short birth, but I would like, something shorter, like, maybe in the 5 to 10 hours range. And I had an 8-hour long birth, and comparing to my son's birth again, I had him in the birthing pool, and I was like, maybe next time I would like to have a land birth, as they call it. And then the last thing was, I wish that I had spent more time like on the toilet. Because when you're in labor, sitting on the toilet, like, because that's where you go to the restroom, it just helps your pelvic floor relax. But it can be really intense and unpleasant and painful, because it makes your contractions more intense when you sit on the toilet. And so I wish that I had, tried harder. I think I tried really hard when I was in labor with my son to just sit on the toilet, but it was so uncomfortable. It's kind of funny just looking back on those things and being like, thanks God. I mean, I definitely didn't want to lose the baby, but just seeing like just those little details that no one knew, but God knew, it just blessed my heart. So it's been a journey, and I'm still on the journey. I feel like I'm, coming out of depression and just lack of motivation, all those things feel like they're fading away, which is really nice. But there are still some things that come up, and I was talking with a dear friend of mine recently, and I told her about the miscarriage, and she was just so sweet in the way that she just held me and encouraged me. And then, like, no one else has ever said this to me, but she just asked me, like, so how is your heart doing, like, with the devil's lies about your ability to carry more children, like to have healthy pregnancies? And I was just like, whoa, like, that was so deep. Like, no one has asked me that, and I hadn't told anyone that except probably my husband. After the first miscarriage, like, I was like, wow, that was awful, but that's like a once in a lifetime thing, right? And then after the second miscarriage, it was like, whoa, wait a second, like, is there something wrong with my body? Is this gonna happen again? Like, how am I gonna know, like, feeling like I could live in fear of, like, any subsequent pregnancy could end in a miscarriage, and then even feeling like this detachment, like, I don't want to get attached to the baby because I might lose it, and just like hardening my heart, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. And so when she asked me that, it blessed me. I felt seen, and it just like shed a light on that, and I was able to just give that to God. And when a light is shed on lies of the enemy or secret sins, it loses power. The enemy loses power. Yeah, so I just want to pray for all the mothers out there who have lost a baby or struggled with infertility. God, will you just comfort them? Thank you, God, for calling us to be mothers. God, if it's your will that we have more babies here on earth, will you just empower us to do that? Show us if we need to make any changes. Show us if we need to break any strongholds. God, we trust you. We give you the fear of being infertile. We give you the fear of our babies dying. My life is in your hands, God. My baby's life is in your hands. God, will you strengthen us, encourage us, and challenge us. In Jesus' name, Amen. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to share in the comments if you have struggled with this or if you need any prayer. I'm here for you. Bye.